At the end of the Andrew Lester podcast, Wingnut rode past on his bike, and I didn't have his number, but I definitely took the opportunity to keep in touch from then, and we jumped straight into another podcast at the Alley together, and this is it here. I mean, Wingnut Smith, what a legend. He was the first kind of super grom of all groms, you know, to come onto the world stage, and in that kind of boom period of the 80s, 90s, he really kind of became a symbol of what any young person could do. Really interesting guy, huge legacy, and really nice bloke. So enjoy this podcast with Adam Wingnut Smith, recorded at the Alley in some beautiful sunshine. All right, another episode of the podcast. Adam Wingnut Smith. I was just sitting over there with Andrew Lester, having a chat, and then he rides past. Anyone who listened or watched that last episode with Andrew Lester would have seen Wingnut enter the scene late. So now we're sitting here at the Alley, watching a few Malibu riders do their thing.
Yeah, some nice little waves rolling in at North Cronulla, just around the corner from Cronulla Point and Shark Island at North Cronulla Beach. We're going to go for a swim in about 10-20 minutes after we have a bit of a talk on the beach.
Yeah, that's sweet. So you were just telling me you've been back down here now for about 4 months. You're up at north of the border for a bit there, but how does it feel to be back down here at your is this home? Has it always been home?
Yeah, mate, yeah. Born and raised in the Sutherland Shire, around Cronulla area. They call it Dharawal country. It's,
okay.
It's the Sutherland Shire, all the suburbs surrounding Cronulla. And it is really good to be home. I went sort of walkabout for a bit. I bought a property up on South Stradbroke Island in Queensland, which I really enjoyed my time up there. I was up there for about a year and a half, nearly 2 years. Yeah. And did a bit of travel. Saw some good waves, some great surfing at Snapper Rocks, watching all the coolie crew do their thing. And I really enjoyed my time up there and met a lot of really nice people, Russ and some of the elders up there. And
cool.
Yeah, but to be home back down here, it's just good to catch up, to be able to bump into your friends. You know, you might be out on your bike or doing your groceries or whatever, going about your day to day, and you just bump into like familiar faces and friends that you grew up with, and those were the things that I didn't realise I'd miss about being away from home. But so I kind of realised, I need to sort of be here to get back on my feet and get back in the water and try and lose 5 or 10 kilos and get a bit fitter for summer.
I think that's everybody's challenge this time of year. Everybody's got the same goals. Lose a few kilos for summer. Yeah. It's really interesting that you mentioned, I didn't know that this was Dharawal country. Is that, and you mentioned hanging out with some of the elders up around Cooley, is that kind of connection to country really important to you? Like, is that something that you really always look into? And
as I've gotten older, like a lot of Indigenous things weren't really, there wasn't as much awareness and education when I was growing up. Yeah. But now they teach a lot of it in the local schools, and you know, it's great to see the Aboriginal flag being flown next to the Australian flag at all the schools and stuff, and they're teaching some of the local dialects of, you know, the local regions, like Bundina, Cronulla, I think some of the local primary schools and stuff. And I wish it had been around a bit more when I was younger, but when I was bodyboarding and travelling, I got to meet some of the tribal people down at Jervis Bay and up the mid-north coast and all that, and do like little corroborees and watch them play the didge and the Yidaki and all that. Yeah. So get involved with all that, it's always been good. And I feel a strong connection. You know, there's been obviously a lot of reconciliation with the government and everything between Indigenous people and the Australian people, and I've proudly got the tattoos of the Aboriginal flag, Australian flag, and the American flag, because I spent a bit of time in the US and they helped me get home. I got a bit sick over there. But being back in Australia, like you just got back from overseas, you know what it's like to be back home where you're born and raised, and yeah, we got such lovely beaches and reef breaks everywhere. Just like even today to be on the beach, I just can't wait to get in the water.
Yeah. It's a bloody good day for it too. I mean, this is predominantly a bodyboard podcast, so I'll take us back into the history, a little historical journey with you. I mean, when you began bodyboarding back here, you very quickly rose to become like this kind of super grommet, you know, back in the day. Did it start for you here at the alley? Is this where it started for you as well?
I was more of a South Cronulla boy. This is the Cronulla Sharks board riders, or the alley board riders, and then we've got the Cronulla Point board riders, which is where I was based, just around at South Cronulla, behind Shark Island, Blackwoods Beach, Shelley Beach, over around that area. But we're all part of the same area, but they are sort of broken up. You've got Allura board riders up there, which is where what's his name that's on the world tour at the moment? Can't think of his name, but he's from Allura. Connor O'Leary, But he grew up all along the whole strip here at Cronulla. Yeah. And Ockie, who grew up, this is where Mark used to surf, and Kernell is obviously as well out there. All the same region. But I was more of a South Cronulla boy and grew up surfing South Cronulla, Cronulla Point, Shark Island, and come down here to the alley and get some fun little days here. But when we talk about the old bodyboarding days when I was a young teenager, I miss those days, because as you get older, like I'm 44 now, you sort of want to relive your youth. You want to get back to doing what you enjoyed doing as a kid. Yeah. It gets you, life can get pretty overwhelming as you get older with all the stuff that comes along with it, but really you want to get back to your roots and just remember what it was like to have that same enthusiasm and stoke as a grommet, being around the beach and the waves and stuff.
So with that like those young years, because it did, I mean, how old were you when you got that first kind of board model? What age were you then?
I would have been about, I went from moray bodyboards when I was a kid. My dad got me a moray, and he knew some of the reps, and got my first manta board when I was about 13, I think.
That's what roughly I thought,
about that age, 12 or 13. I went to manta from moray, and my dad became good friends with Terry Fleming, the founder of the Fleming family of manta bodyboards, which was a godsend really, because that was sort of launched me into my professional career and got me to travel the world and sort of live out a dream that was beyond a dream as a little kid. There's no platform for that as of yet, but we just sort of went along for the ride as we got older and into our 20s, and so that was about the age. And then I think I was about 14, 15 when Terry Fleming helped me release the first Wingnut board. So,
and that was like, I mean, we'll stay on that, but I want to even go earlier before we get too deep in that. How did you get into bodyboarding? What was the kind of inspiration for you to do it at the time, as opposed to, like you can ride anything around here? So why did the bodyboard jump out for you?
Yeah, okay. Well, when I was, before I moved to the beach, like we're about probably 20-minute drive out west, which is not far really, Sutherland, Menai, Bangor region, same sort of west of the Sutherland Shire. And then I was always really sporty, like I was into cricket and football, and my dad was involved in sports. I was always really sporty, and when my mum and dad moved my sister and I out to the beach, because they moved to the beach for whatever reasons. They were renting here when they were still together, and that was sort of my introduction to the beach. Like, you move to the beach, you'd see everyone enjoying the beach with, whether it was a beach umbrella or a blow-up mat or a longboard, or the things that we all see at the beach. We had those back when I was a kid, but I just wanted to get into bodyboarding because some of my friends from school were bodyboarders, and I was like, oh, Mum, can you get me a bodyboard or a boogie board, whatever they wanted. I think we call them boogie boards back then.
I'm sure that was the boogie board era,
Yeah, and that was what sort of got me into that. But I rode surfboards as well. Like, I remember riding a single fin before I got a boogie board, but I enjoyed the stand-up surfing around at Blackwoods Beach when my mum and sunbake, and I'd catch a few little waves and go, wow, this is unreal, like my introduction to surfing. But I wanted to get a boogie board because some of my friends from school would do it, and we'd do it after school. We'd just walk down the beach, like the beach was our backyard.
Yeah, sweet.
Our mum and dad would say, all right, it's safe to go down there. You got the lifeguards and, you know, there's everyone else enjoying the beach and stuff. So it was just a playground, really, like after school and before school. And it was a godsend because it was one of the best things my parents could have done for my sister and I, because we were coastal kids after that. We just wanted to be near the beach all the time, you know, near the waves.
And how did you ended up going with the bodyboard? What was the did you kind of immediately fall in love with it or recognise that there was like something more going on here for you?
I fell in love with it. It was easy. It was easier than stand-up surfing. It was not as intimidating because, you know, it wasn't the heavy, hard fiberglass board. You know, if you fell off and your board bumped you on your head, you wouldn't need stitches and things like that. But fell in love with it, and then noticed that some of the older guys, like, you know, your Doug Robsons, Matt Percy's, Dean Harrell, Brett Young, all those older guys, there was a crew of them that had bodyboards, and they all had the hard bottom slick Max 7s, the new boards with the stickers and stuff on it. And then there was a local surf shop that had the like American Bodyboarding. He was a flight attendant. He used to bring the magazines back from America and Hawaii.
Yeah, right.
And like around the time the Tom Boyle movies came out.
Yeah, right.
So, and there was a few little small regional like club competitions that would pop up. Like they were grassroots, but I had my foot in the door already because I knew some of the older people. Yeah. And that's sort of where the professional side of things kicked off, because it was like, all right, we can have our Cronulla Point bodyboard events, and then, you know, the international guys would come here, Keith Sasaki, Jay Reel, you know, all around that era. And my dad was involved because he was heavily involved in touch football and sport. Yeah, so he could see that there was a young sport, that had potential. Yeah. You know, that kids or even adults enjoyed doing at the beach. So my dad sort of helped the professional side of the sport with getting events running with people who were organised with, you know, putting on big events like the Pro-Am at Manly, like they talk about in Holding On, the movie, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen. Yeah. So that's just where it all sort of snowballed from there. And then next thing you know, I was 16, 17, 18, and I was lucky enough, my dad would take me to Hawaii at the end of each year for school holidays, just for 2, 3, 4 weeks or something. But that's where they'd have the pipeline, the world titles. You know, there was all the legendary older guys of the sport. Ross Hawke was competing for Australia, and I got to meet all the internationals. Became friends with a lot of my heroes. You know, like Mike Stewart and Ben Severson and Keith Sasaki, Jay Reel, all those guys. So I was like, I was so lucky that I could sort of rub shoulders and be out in the water and get tips off the best guys in the world. But they became my friends. I think there's Chris Stroh sitting down the beach too. Chris was one of the local photographers. He's just taken some photos of some of the local guys. But he helped develop the sport as well.
Was that a pretty important part? Like, I mean, coming back to the board, because I do want to get to Strohy as well as a factor in your kind of journey, but, you know, was it kind of all came together at the right time in a sense, didn't it? Like, because Manta recognised you as a talent, as a young talent in the area. Yeah. Chris Stroh was here filming talent in the area, and then it seemed also like you had this kind of father who was willing to put a lot of time and effort to make sure that you could develop your talent as well. That's right. So there's like these kind of three things seem to be working together.
And Terry from Manta too.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all really supportive. Like I was just blessed to be. Yeah, like you said, my dad was like, after he split from my mum, he wanted the best for me and my sister. Yeah. And, you know, he just wanted to help us out, and he did what he could. He worked at the airport, which isn't far from here.
Yeah.
So we get cheap travel to Hawaii each year. And
Oh,
go on
okay. So that was
holidays
that was a little feature.
Yeah, so that was a
Okay.
big thing. Like, I went to Hawaii, I think, from the time I was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, like, each year.
Wow.
So part of it, I sort of grew up in Hawaii in a
Yeah.
little way. Like, I'd spend a little bit of time on the North Shore of
That's
Oahu.
cool. Was
Yeah,
that
like
was
year
that an
after
important
year.
part for you? Did that
Oh,
like
huge,
because you
yeah.
had Shark Island here, which was obviously a wave that you could practice on and really develop that kind of charge, like, you know, deal with the reef break, deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
But did that time in Hawaii, was that formative as well? Like,
Oh,
and was
massive.
it mostly at Pipeline, or where were you spending your time when you were in Hawaii?
Yeah, on the 7 Mile Strip,
Yeah.
on the North Shore of Oahu. So obviously there's 5, 10, 20 world-class breaks over
Yeah.
there, you know, and it taught me a lot about localism and respect for the local people.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Australia and Hawaii have got links with the Duke Hanamoko. Like, the
Yeah,
Duke
yeah.
came out here and was such a legend over there with the aloha spirit and everything. And it taught me a lot, like respecting the older people, respecting other people's country and their surf breaks. Like, surfing was always very tribal and localized, especially bodyboarding. You sort of had to sort of pull your head in and make sure you you're respectful of all the older guys and that. But Hawaii did teach me a lot about that, and I was lucky enough to meet a lot of the heavy crew, like, you know. And as growing up as a teenager and becoming a young man and into manhood, I idolised those guys, and I wanted to be like them when I got older and fit and strong and be at the beach and be able to surf power surfing and all that and style and stuff. And so I think it helped my surfing 100%. Yeah, being able to grow up like that.
Yeah, with that every year.
Yeah.
I mean, when the board, you know, like, you had this Wingnut model that, I don't know, a kid at the time that didn't have a Wingnut board, like, was that just a mind-blowing experience in itself, you know, to have that, like, the success of that board so sudden? Was it like a shock to your system in a sense?
But because I didn't really know any different, I was so young, it was kind of normal.
Yeah,
but
right.
looking back on it now, I think, wow, like, how lucky I am. Like, it's so fortunate. It's such an honour.
Yeah.
Because I tell this story to a lot of people because I get asked it quite often, and it reminds me of like, when I grew up, I remember my mum taking us to the Sydney Opera House to watch, like, the skateboarders, like
Okay.
Christian Hoysoi, you know, the Power Peralta guys.
Yeah.
You know, around the Searching for Animal Chin, Power Peralta, you know, Tony Hawk days, all that. Because we used to see the boards in the shop windows and go, like, look at these skateboarders. They've got, like, actual skateboards.
They got models, yeah.
Yeah, and this was the late 80s, like early 90s, where it was like they had their own model. And that's why when I was lucky enough to hook up with Manta, and I think they talked about bringing out the Pro Hawk at the time.
Yeah.
And then they threw the idea around of having a grommet board with Wingnut on it, you know.
That in
And I was
itself
like-
is revolutionary.
I was like, yeah, I could see that there was a market for it.
Yeah.
And that there was a lot of younger guys who need to have a smaller board. So
Yeah.
I thought I'll just try and jump in and capitalise on the grommet side of the bodyboarding market. And
Yeah.
I think it worked out really well. Like, we sold a lot of boards with Manta, and it was a blessing. And I've just got through finishing off selling about 60 limited edition Wingnut boards through QCD.
Yeah.
And that was made me feel really, like, proud and good that I can be in my 40s and still be able to sell boards to guys that grew up in my era and guys up and down the east coast of Australia. And I was getting orders from overseas still, like, people interested. And
Are you going to do another run of those? Are you thinking to do more in the future?
Yeah, it's not a priority at the moment, but if there's more demand and if I get more people asking me on Instagram and Facebook and social media, if I think it's worth doing another run, I'll get another 50 done up or something if I can afford to get, you know, the materials and stuff are quite expensive. But it was more just a little project type thing to go with the Holding On movie, you know, just release it with that and just see what sort of interest we had. But it's not a huge market, you know. It's not like I've got right guys contacting me. We want this. We need more boards. But you know, it's sort of a specialty thing, you know. Like,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
But like with that career, that kind of moment, you know, would you say that it really, like, how old were you when it really kind of, the switch was flicked and you were like, Adam Wingnut Smith, professional bodyboarder, this is real. How old were you when that happened? I would
have been 16, 17 when I started. About 17 when I hit the pro, like went from amateur to pro, and then there started to be money involved, and mainly from like my endorsements with Manta Surfing products, and then also professional events having more money involved in the bodyboard events. The world tour had kicked off when I left high school. I was 18.
Yeah.
That was probably a big reality check. It was like, well, what are you going to do when you finish school?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, well, we've got all these events. This is part of the GOB, the Global Organisation of Bodyboarding, as they talk about on the movie Holding On. And I just went straight from high school, graduating high school, to straight onto the world tour. And I did that for 2 or 3 years before I fell ill with the bipolar and had to be hospitalised and stuff. So I probably could have kept my career going longer if I didn't fall ill, but I was just happy to get a good solid 2 or 3 years of traveling the world and living the dream and beyond the dream, really, of what I ever expected would come of my career. So I got all that good time, and then when things were up and down with my health and stuff, I still stayed in the sport. And I think the Shark Island event helped that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, that must have given you another, like a second wind after
just
that,
sort of
dealing with
stepped
the
it up. Like, it was like, rather than just sort of go back into doing, like, I got involved in carpentry and doing apprenticeships and in the building trade and different jobs, which we've all got to do in your 20s and stuff, finding different work.
Yeah.
But it just sort of made me think, hang on, I can stay involved in the bodyboarding if I stay fit enough and healthy enough, and I'll try and do really well at the Shark Island event, because it's like, you know, it's right there, and I had the experience and and the confidence, like, that I could do well in that event. So that sort of kept me involved in the sport in a sense, where I just wanted to, and plus I still love the sport that gave me so much, and surfing as well, and just swimming at the ocean, body surfing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'll always want to be involved in that, you know, like, I don't want to go and live out west or move to the bush.
Nah.
You know, I just want to be around the beach and try and be fit and healthy enough to be able to be catching waves. So, that's pretty much how where it all just trying to make money off the things you enjoy doing the most, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at a career down the track like diversional therapy. I want to do talks with Holding On and the movie Holding On, and Kissed by God, the Andy Irons documentary, where it talks about addiction and mental illness, you know, drug and alcohol, the effects of all that. Like, I was never really a clean-cut athlete, triathlon type person. I was more of a
I don't think many
man.
people are, like, to be honest. Like, I don't think anyone... it's a very rare beast to...
But I think I can offer some advice there, whereas, you know, if you sort of focus on being more, like, focused on healthy and that, you can sustain a longer career in your chosen sport.
But what's this diversional therapy? What's that all about?
Just to take people's minds off, like, they might be school leavers, like, you know, say year 12, or people that are in, you know, have mental health issues, that are in and out of hospital, just diverting their thoughts from being depressed. Like, you might be suffering depression or anxiety or something, and you can take your mind off it by watching surf movies and bodyboard movies, and or whether it's to do with music or things that they love doing. You know, music's a big thing. I like art, music. I've just done a couple of weeks that I wasn't feeling real well, and I went back up to hospital, and they played around with my medication, which has been really good for me. But we did diversional therapy, like music and art classes and cooking classes, things like that. You know, just to take your mind off, you know, being depressed and being sick and being unwell. I just think I want to be more of a motivational peer support type speaker. I think I've got a lot to offer there, so I might look at doing my own business and travel up and down the coast and try and work with the Hurley, the young surfers, you know, and sort of more of a thing of like, do as I say, not as I do, or not as I've done, because like, you know, there was I picked up a lot of bad habits along the way, but whereas I want to try and be a motivational speaker and tell people that if you make the right choices, you know, you can have longevity in your career, whether it's surfing or whatever it may be. Stay focused on that and not party so much, go out, get mixed up with, you know, illegal drugs and all that, because it's just take you down a bad road, you know.
Do you think that like the kind of sudden success at that age that you had, was that kind of like part of the recipe for,
100%,
for the downfall?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think it's good for people to get that like level of success so young? Can a young person really handle it?
If you can manage it and stuff, like I know I've seen a lot of other people in acting and that, like TV stars, things like that are successful when they're younger. They always seem to sort of go off the rails a bit as they get older. It was hard for me, like being so well known, just the way you perceive things, your perception, especially going from like a little teenager to like a full grown man. You know, like in your 20s or 30s, you got to make that transition. And it was just hard for me. Plus there was drugs and alcohol involved, and that doesn't help as well with your perception on reality and stuff. So they're the sort of things that I'd sort of try and steer people away and just say, you know, if you're successful when you're young, then you can roll it over and, you know, you can stay successful basically. Just you don't want to go off the rails. There's certain tips and that I can give people where I may have gone wrong, you know, as a young kid.
I'm sure there is, but I mean, there's also parts where you obviously went right. Like, you know, like to get to the level of ability that you got to at such a young age. I mean, it required something pretty special to be able to get there. And you know, what do you think the key things for you as a teenager? What was it that you were doing that got your ability level so high, so young? What do you think it was?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to say the thing was being so young and trying to better myself and get better and push was a lot of the older guys, like you know, the older group of people. You want to be as good as them, or you know, not outperform, but you just want to be at their level or want their respected by your peers, you know. And also I think bodyboarding was good at the time because I was always a surf fan, you know. I was a fan of surfing in the 80s and 90s and always looked up to surfing. A lot of us bodyboarders did from around here, and it made us want to be better bodyboarders to sort of get some sort of level of respect from the surfers, to think, hang on, these boogie boarders are actually doing some pretty cool stuff. Like they're drawing good lines and they're getting good barrels and doing pretty big airs and stuff. I don't know. I just wanted to sort of surf my boogie board the way that the best surfers were surfing their surfboards, if that makes sense. Drawing similar lines and, you know, doing sort of same sort of aerials and just, I don't know, if that makes sense. That's what I wanted to do. Whereas, like, I always surfed as well. Like, I love getting on my surfboard and surfing, but I was never really any good at surfing. But I knew that I was up the top in the bodyboarding in my teens and stuff, so I could just focus, like, wholly on being the best bodyboarder I could be, because it might get me onto the world tour. It might get me around the world to travel one day. And and it did. So, like, I was lucky, you know, and I got to meet so many people and surf so many great waves around the world and go to all these beautiful places. And it's just from, bodyboarding and surfing mainly.
But was it like that, but so with that development of your abilities, it really was about, you kind of seem to have been looking either up at the next generation or the guys above you thinking, I want to be in that pack. And then, you know, it's always about kind of working to an external kind of source. Like you're like, I want to be there. I want the respect of those guys. Is that kind of the main driver, you think, when you're a teenager?
Definitely. Definitely. Of course, now that I'm older, like the last 10 years or something, I'm 44 now. I don't have that at all. Like, I want to be, I love surfing and I still bodyboard. But I don't want to outperform anyone. I don't want to perform to anyone's standard or level.
Yeah.
I just want to go out and be happy in the waves.
Yeah.
And for me, it's me wanting to be like surf the last wave as well as I surfed the one a couple of months before or whatever. Like, so if I'm kooking it, I'll be hard on myself. But if I'm out there enjoying it and having fun and a laugh, and I'm out there with friends or some sexy chicks in bikinis, I'll be like, yeah. It's been worth coming to the beach for the day, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, looking back, you talk with like, you know, I can see there's this like kind of fond memories of that kind of time when your professional career was really soaring. Like, is there a specific moment in that time that you kind of look at? Like, can you pick a moment and tell a story? Like, is there a great moment from your history that you can share?
Yeah, I'd have to touch on the one, like we were just saying. We just accidentally bumped into Andrew Lester. You were doing the podcast with Andy.
Cool.
And I heard him mention the ISA, which is if people aren't familiar with it, it's to do with getting surfing into the Olympics, which this year, 2020, it's finally happened. Apart from COVID, has kind of stuffed things up a bit. But back in 1996, when I won the first or second Australian tour title, it was me and Steve Bullet McKenzie from Maroubra, who I looked up to and I still do. I beat him a couple of times and we qualified onto the Australian team. So we got to wear the Australian emblem, emblem and a blazer, and we had uniforms sponsored by Quicksilver, and to me that was a real highlight. That was like I'd been accepted into the surf tribe because we're in the team with Munga Barry and Taj Burrows, a lot of good surfers, women bodyboarders, and and it was just an honour to walk with the Aussie flag and to do the whole march up Huntington Beach, California, be a part of the big whole surf tribe or industry type thing, and be accepted. And we had Wayne Rabbit Bartholomew was one of our coaches, and Mark Warren, who I absolutely idolised, because we always idolised the surfers from the sort of 60s and 70s, like Michael Peterson and all that Rabbit era, and the Bronzed Aussies and all that. So we always really looked up to them because we always felt that bodyboarding was a bit like that was. When there was no money in the sport, we were just trying to get it to a professional stage like they were back then. But to be in that team and to represent Australia and finish third and win a bronze medal, that would probably be one of the biggest highlights, representing your country. That's a big standout for me.
It's interesting that is a big standout, and maybe it's just because of assumptions made about the Cronulla guys, this kind of the skid kids dominating that wave over there and kind of being really focused on charging and doing, these kind of tackling these mutant kind of slabs was the notoriety that I think Cronulla bodyboarders had from that period, at least for a guy coming from Foster and maybe guys coming from outside. So it's really interesting to hear that your fond memory is of a competition that was probably in pretty shitty waves, right? It wasn't probably any good, was it?
No, there was some other moments, like when we talk about as far as the waves. The waves were ordinary, no good for like just shitty little beach breaks.
Yeah, but he still came third.
Yeah.
As a team,
as a team, we finished third to America and Brazil. But there was other moments, like there was moments that outshone that as far as waves, like surfing pipeline, like with some of my heroes like Michael Derrick Ho and Mike Stewart and Sean Briley and all these great Hawaiian surfers, just sharing the lineup with them, being accepted, not as one of the boys, but just getting the nod off them and and the shuckers and that, just being accepted on the North Shore of Hawaii and spending time over there and not getting into much strife and just
that's usually
trying to do the right thing by the local guys.
That's usually how you measure success over there. If you get
there's a lot of
strife, you're pretty happy.
There's too many things to sort of sit here and pull out of the memory bank. But it's like there's moments where I sit at home or in my quiet time and I remember those good times. If I'm starting to get down or depressed, I'll remember the good times and think, hang on, like what got me to that stage? I can still do that. Like I'm 44. But there's still other things I can do till I'm 50 or whatever. I'm going to have to work hard, to make money and to pay rent and all that. But you just got to focus on the things that you love doing, is it your family and friends and having fun and going to the beach with them, or teaching kids to surf, or your family to surf, or you know, like there's all these little moments, and just makes you want to think like that they were special moments growing up, so then there's going to be more special moments ahead, like plenty to look forward to, you know, if you just focus on the little things and then you get to enjoy the good times with your friends and family and doing the things you love.
Is that the kind of message part of this kind of, because, you know, you mentioned you've got this kind of constant, you know, this bipolar struggle, like it's part of your life. Is that kind of advice that you give to people, or what is that kind of advice that you give to anyone that might listen to this who's struggling themselves? We had Ryan Hardy on this podcast as well, and he's had his kind of challenges with bipolar as well, and he shared some of the things that he's been doing. But what's your kind of advice for someone who, you know, despite all of the ups and downs of life, you're still here, you're still kind of fighting fit, and you're still ready to go? Like what's your take on the best kind of advice you can give to anyone?
Off the top of my head, I don't really know. Just that, like I said, diversional therapy, you know, if you're down and depressed, or, you know, if you're trying to bodyboard and you don't feel you're good enough to be a really good bodyboarder or something, divert your train of thought, or like your perception on things, and just go, hang on, like, you know, it's not that bad, like, or look at other hobbies, you know, like if you're bored of bodyboarding or surfing, or you know, which is all your passion, then look at it, there's other things, you know, there's music, cooking, like, just there's all different things you can do to keep yourself positive, stay happy, go and visit friends. You know, it's hard with COVID, like the government's getting on board with mental health and and all that.
Well, they have to, right? Like, it's a crisis.
I'm sure some people struggle more than others, but it's hard to say, but like, without talking to an individual what they're struggling with. But just shift your way of thinking, like your perception on things, you know, like certain, you know, people might look up to me and my bodyboard career, but really that might be a false perception of how my life actually was. They may think, oh, this guy's lived this fairy tale lifestyle, when really it wasn't really like that. There was a lot of hardship and a lot of tough times, and those glorified, highlighted moments, they weren't really that good at the time anyway. Like for me, like they were big things, like big goals of mine that I've achieved and ticked off. But each individual can do that in their own life with, you know, it doesn't have to, like, make your own life out to be your own fairy tale. Like, you're telling, you know, you're the movie star of your own destiny. Like, you know, create your own journey, write down your goals, and don't be too hard on yourself if you don't achieve them and stuff, and don't get down and depressed, and, you know, focus on the people that, you know, in your life and that have helped you and who you want to help and things like that. I don't know, it's hard.
No, I think that's solid, but, you know, but I think it's cool about, like, that idea that that fairy, like, you know, people can look at someone else's life, like, and assume a fairy tale.
Like, I might look at Kelly Slater, for example, or Mark Occhilupo, like from the local area around here, and think, oh, you know, they've done this, done that, and they're still doing this and they're still doing that. But really, deep down, they're probably just like average people, you know. They go about, do their ordinary things,
have their ordinary struggles.
They just have this dream job that we all love to be, you know, 11 times world champion or whatever, or have your own wave pool where, you know. But really, deep down, they're just ordinary people with ordinary friends going through the same sort of day-to-day struggles like everyone else, except we've all put them on a pedestal because, you know, they're legends. But really, you know, they're just average people. So, like, every average person can achieve great things, and you don't need thousands of people worshipping you and saying, oh, you're such a legend, or we'll follow you on Instagram or whatever. You just go about do your own things, and just be proud of your own, everything you've done. Look back on the things you've done and go, shit, I had to work really hard to get through school and to get through this and that and whatever, and just be proud of who you are and keep learning as you grow older. I don't know. I don't really feel like I'm a teacher or a fucking prophet. I don't want to go preaching and that, but
you just shared some wisdom, so that's all right. That's what I think. That's what we're meant to do over time. We're meant to learn a couple of things and share a few tips along the way. So, well, look, thanks for the chat. I think it's a nice really good little bumping into each other at the
no,
right time. I was cruising through
talking.
town.
Yeah, enjoyed talking, and when I saw you and Andy sitting there having a chat, and now I've just seen Chris Stroh.
Yeah, let's Stroh. We'll go harass him next.
Yeah, go and say hello to him. I'm going to have a swim too.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get in the water.
Thanks for
worries,
having
mate.
a chat. I've enjoyed it. Sitting down the beach, having a yarn.
Stoked. I mean, I know for a lot of guys in my generation that, you know, like before there were the kind of, you know, the young stars of like your players and all that, there was, you know, Wingnut was that star that everyone looked at and gone, shit, he's doing that at 16. Like, I want to do that at 15. You know, like, so, no, you're a really big inspiration for a lot of us, and I think it's just really cool.
I know, and I'm proud of that too. Like, the people I've helped, like Andy Lester, I used to make him Wingnut boards. Ryan Hardy, I used to, Mitch Rawlings, Wingnut boards.
Yeah, that was one of his first.
Yeah, like, they were all underneath me, and, you know, the players were always really competitive. They didn't ride my boards, I don't think, but, you know, to see the next level of guys come through and then sort of surpass what I could have done and sort of take the sport to another level, it made me feel like, well, shit, I've done my bit, like contributed my part.
100%.
Now it's up to the next generation to keep pushing and taking the sport to new heights. And when I look back overall, I think, you know, we as the skid kids and as individuals, we did that, and I'm proud of it. You know, it's good to see the sport, and, you know, people are just enjoying the beach and all different types of crafts and that. So yeah, it's all good.
Cool. Well, let's go enjoy it ourselves.
Yeah, I'll go and say hello to Strohy.
The boogie.